Hello, everybody. We're here live again. This is my second live on multiple platforms, so I'm really excited to have Andrew Miller. We're both part of Collaboration Global, which is a great network. If you haven't heard of that before, check it out, Collaboration Global. And yeah, Andrew. So anyway, how are you?
Good, thank you. Yeah. Surviving quite nicely, thank you. We've just got over the warm bit, and we're all good, all good.
All good, all good. How is the heat where you are?
Yeah. I think we got close to the 40-degree temperatures. Certainly in Doncaster, it went over 40. In Leeds, it did. But where we were, it was that sort of temperature. But we just sort of, I was in the house all the time because I was working I was running a workshop, so I was on the computer most of the time. But we just had the windows closed, curtains closed, drank a lot of water, and we were fine, But I didn't need to go out, so.
Very good.
glad that it's cooling down, getting the windows and doors open now, and just starting to get the air out. But yeah, it was fine.
Interesting, yeah. So
not had any of the problems that some of the others had. You see some of the news; it's quite horrible what some people are doing through. So we're blessed.
Yeah. So Andrew, so we met a while ago, and I've been thinking for a while to have a chat with you. And when we met a couple of weeks ago in person, actually, at the first Collaboration Global event, we were chatting about a few things, and I just there was one video that I checked on your LinkedIn profile that really grabbed my attention. It was a video about purpose. I know this is a topic that is very relevant to what you do, and of course, it is also relevant to what I do as well, because so by the way, just let's introduce each other a bit, so if people don't know who we are, maybe we put so my name is might be a good idea. So my name is Riccardo Sai, originally from Italy. Been in this country for 20 odd years. I've been a filmmaker, director, creative producer, and photographer for all my life, and recently launched my company called Storo, which is a visual storytelling studio focusing on purpose-driven businesses. So that's in a nutshell who I am. How about you, Andrew? Who are you?
Yeah. So Andrew Miller, we know that bit. So I run a company called Business Enjoyment, and it stems from the fact that I've worked with lots of businesses where they've been in real difficulty and had to help them through some difficult times. But I also work with a number of people at all level of stages, and come to realise that the majority of issues and problems we have, and the stresses and strains within business, come from a fact that we live in a society which is all driven by money, and everything's focused on making as much money as possible, and success equals how much money you make, and the reality is, and we all know this, is that that's not how we are wired, but that's the society we live in. That's all most of the messages tell us. So we end up getting into a business that we think is doing well or not, but we're not actually enjoying it. And what I try and do is get people sort of to create their own path, eliminate the things that are causing all the problems, and get them moving forward towards the things they really want. And at the top point there, that's where purpose sits, because that's the thing that will drive us forward and move us forward in the direction we want to go. In a nutshell.
That was very, very good, and I think a lot of people relate to that, especially as we touched on my previous life about authenticity. I think the pandemic really shifted a lot of things, a lot of these. So a lot of people had started to have this conversation before the pandemic, of course, but I think somehow the pandemic really accelerated that. But anyway, I'll ask you a question about that. Yeah. Sorry.
Well, I was just saying, it was that period where it made us think about what's really important in life and what really matters. And and then just to be clear, I'm not discounting money. I'm not saying ignore it. It's a very important part. I'm just saying it's a part and not the sole thing. So it's more than just money. That's the thing. So it's bringing in these other things. And yeah, as you say, a period of reflection, which. Kind of continues, but then can easily get washed away with all the other fears and concerns that are flying around. And if we're not careful, we can forget about those things that really matter, because it gets washed away by the other things. So we do need to keep it in mind.
Absolutely, yeah. I wanted to kind of kickstart this conversation about purpose with, as I did on my previous live, about the meaning of purpose. And I literally what I did, I went on the dictionary and I just checked, some definition of purpose. But then I will ask you a question as well, Andrew. So be ready for that. So do two definitions.
Are you going to read us
Yeah,
the dictionary definition? Because I don't think I've ever actually looked, to be honest. I've
yeah,
created
yeah.
my own one, but I
Exactly.
don't
I
think I've
think
actually looked.
it's always very interesting, because it's a good way to kind of start the conversation. Anyway, I'll read it and then I'll ask you what you think of that. There's two mean. I mean, there's different meanings, but there's two definitions that I found particularly interesting. So the purpose of something is the reason for which it is made or done, is why you do something. Your purpose is the thing that you want to achieve. So, of course, some of the synonyms are dream, aim, aspiration, target, ideal. So what is purpose for you, Andrew?
Well, I think the fact that you gave sort of picked out a couple of definitions there is actually one of the interesting points, because purpose gets talked about more and more in society and on social media and the rest of it. And I think we do have to be clear about what sort of purpose we're talking about. It is different for different situations. Important all the way through, but it has a different nuance. And I would be intrigued to have a look at all the options they've got. But I came up with kind of 3 categories, and I'm not hooked on these titles. I might shift and change them at the minute, but this is what I'm running with at the moment. So first off, we've got kind of functional purpose, and you kind of alluded that in your first definition, what we were made to do. And now we can look at a very specific thing, very functional. So, a can opener. What is the function? What is the purpose of a can opener? It's to open cans. That's its function. As a very, black and white sort of thing. But when you think about somebody who has lost their job and they're unemployed for 5 years, they can't get anything, they can't do it, but then they go out and volunteer at a work thing, or even just work down the Tesco or whatever it might be, they finally get something, then you hear the phrase, oh, finally I have a purpose. And that's just that functional thing, I am doing something kind of thing. And that may be all it needs. So that's just the pure functional element of it. I think then there's another level, which is sort of specific purpose. And that is the specific focus and the mindfulness that we hold when we are doing a task or doing a thing. So we can do something with purpose. We can, I'm quoting examples that used frequently as deliberately, doing the washing up with purpose, cleaning things down with purpose in a very deliberate, meaningful way. And we get more connected to it, and we're more in the moment, and we feel more around it, kind of thing. That can be applied to anything we do. So we can have specific purpose for a specific task. And then there's a third thing, which I consider to be sort of, I'm calling it general purpose, or life purpose, whatever it might be. And I'm not a believer that we are born with that purpose intact and knowing that, on day one, we should be able to work out where we're going to go. We kind of have to uncover it through life. But it's that process of uncovering to say, and I think this is tapping into that second definition you said, yeah. What is the thing that we want to do? What is the thing that's going to go out there and make a difference to other people, but make our hearts sing at the same time? And getting that balance of external and internal for me is the key bit in that general thing. And then that guides us through everything we do. And we can have different sort of paths, different routes, but it's a general direction that we're going in, and everything we do in terms of life, business, whatever it might be, all sort of fits into that funnel kind of thing. So that makes sense in terms of the 3 different categories as the way I perceive
absolutely.
it.
Yeah, no, I remember. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned these 3 types of purpose, and yeah, absolutely. I mean, of course, the one that I, resonates with me more is the third one. But it's interesting, just to have a perspective about the other type of purposes as well. So, yeah. So Andrew,
and I say because in conversation, people use the same term interchangeably, but it means slightly different thing. And if your head's in one space and someone else in the other, you get miscommunication.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And with that general purpose, the other thing that keeps it crops got, my purpose keeps changing. My purpose is always changing. Oh, when I was young, it was this. When it was, I say, yeah, that's because you're actually just uncovering your purpose. That's part of your journey through life to discover it. They are actually all connected. but it's just finding different ways to get to it, and you may not know what it is yet.
Yeah.
But it will
Yeah.
be connected. So I say
No,
it's not changing, it's just unraveling.
yeah, no, that's interesting. I mean, it really resonates with me because I mean, for me, my journey was, working in advertising, making films for Nike, working on big brands, and it's only recently that I realized that, I started to really question myself about that. What is my purpose? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Who am I trying to help with my work? So it's really interesting. It's only when you start asking yourself those questions that things start moving, at a different
So
speed.
what made you suddenly question what you were doing and why you were doing it? What led you to that?
For me, it was like, I've been doing the same thing for many years, and I many things really changed in my life. I discovered Buddhist philosophy. I went through a divorce. Many things really changed in my life, and I realized that I had a huge inner transformation, but also I wanted my business to align with my inner transformation as well. So in a way, yeah, my purpose, my internal purpose, was already kind of somehow ahead of my business purpose, and I wanted them to align with each other. So I think that's kind of what triggered. And of course, as we said before, the pandemic accelerated that, and really it was a great opportunity for me, as
Mm.
many other people as well, to go deeper and to really kind of question.
So if I can summarize in my language and see if I've got it right. So or pick up. So you were doing what you're doing. You were good at what you were doing, but it was getting repetitive. It was getting boring, and it was almost too easy, maybe. But then you actually look around at what's going on in your life, and you realize you're not happy. And even though you're doing what you're good at, doing really, very, really well at it, still not happy. There's got to be something more.
Yeah.
And that's a great way of illustrating what I was saying at the beginning in terms of the mantra of business enjoyment. In terms of, you could be really good at what you do and actually passionate. I mean, I bet your passion for photography hadn't diminished. It was the sort of stuff around it. You still love what you do in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But that's a broader sense of enjoyment. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
So, um, so on just thinking about that, Andrew. So, life purpose and business purpose, how are they the same thing? Do they need to align? What's your take on that?
Well, my take on it is I tend to work with people who are in the sort of smaller business arena, or people who are very sort of in control of their own thing. And I think the more you have somebody in control of a business, the more aligned they are going to be. I think when you've got a global corporation, you can have a life purpose. It's going to be different to the business purpose, because it's just, there's no way you can get a huge conglomerate where everyone's going in the same direction that aligned. The smaller the business, the closer they're going to be at the end of the day. And I don't see, and well, I kind of don't see a delineation, because I don't see when your passion is what you believe in and what you do, and if you can find a way to get that to work in a way that is the business sense as well, then that's got to be the holy grail. However, that being said, sometimes the business purpose is to allow the personal purpose to happen, if that makes sense. So there might be a personal thing, which is there's never going to be a money making, and not well, to be able to stand on its own 2 feet to sort of generate funds to keep you surviving, sort of thing. It might be purely helping others in some way, shape or form with no reward, but you need something that helps support that. So it can be disconnected. It's better if they are connected, obviously.
Yeah. So why do you think a business needs a purpose? And does every business needs a purpose?
Needs a strong word. And again, I think it's interesting, certainly between life and business. I think a business should ought to have a purpose in the more functional, specific sense, in order to and a general direction as to where you're going, so that it's got people can look at it and know what it's about, what it's talking about, what it means, why it's there, and all the rest of it. And I think it helps with clarity of communication. The thing about personal purposes, and the more aligned they are, the better, as I say. It's all about the word need. That's the one I'm going to focus on, because when we have a word need, in any sentence, it kind of creates a pressure, and the reality is we don't need anything. Everything is a choice. Everything we can do is what we want to do. We don't need to have anything. I think, however, if we can be open to allowing it to come in when we do discover true purpose within life, and then we can connect it with purpose in business, it adds stuff that you just can't get otherwise. So you can have a really good life, really happy life without purpose. You can be comfortable, you can be safe, and to be honest, in general, you were okay when you were talking about, you had a business that was successful, you're doing well. You can have an okay life. But I mentioned I call it the 7 out of 10 trap. So I think you can only get to about 70% happiness in terms of that sort of space. Finding purpose allows you to go above that and get the extra 30% and get into that sort of space. So do you need it? No, you don't need it. Are you better off with it? Yeah. Is it worth looking for? Absolutely.
Very interesting. Yeah. Yeah, because I'm kind of if you did ask me this question, I would say, yeah, every business needs a purpose, but at the same time, I totally get what you said, and also it's kind of going back to the beginning of our chat about the 3 type of purpose as well. I mean, there's a functional purpose, but then also there's the 3rd type of purpose, which is that 30% that you just mentioned, which is really interesting, actually. And you we're already kind of touched a bit about that at the beginning of our chat about the pandemic and how that changed a lot of businesses internally and structurally as well, and was an opportunity to move the business forward or in a different direction that wasn't originally planned. So, I mean, do you think? I was just thinking as well, because going back also to your mission as well. So you mentioned contentment, being happy about your business. So is there? I mean, I'm probably simplifying that, but Andrew, so contentment and purpose. I mean, do they work? Do they? I mean, obviously they're not the same thing. I mean, do they work in tandem? What's your?
So I'll I'll use my language again, if that's all right.
Absolutely,
I create a contrast between happiness and enjoyment, and I think you might have been out of the room when I did the thing at the event, so you may have missed this. But I'll write it again.
I did some interview outside of the room.
Exactly. Yeah. So happiness for me is one of those things which is a moment in time. It's an instantaneous thing. You are either happy or you're sort of on a scale, happy, sad on a scale. It's a current, how am I right now? Whereas enjoyment is more of an overarching journey destination. So the analogy I use is that happiness is like the weather, enjoyment is like the climate. So in a warmer climate, you will have more happier days. In a warmer climate, you have more sunny days. In an enjoyable climate, you'll have more happy days. Doesn't stop in a warm climate, doesn't stop you having rain, even snow at times. It's not about being on it all the time, but in general, you've got this overarching thing. So weather versus climate is one of the sort of distinctions I use to sort of get between that. And there's a lot of philosophical talk about, and probably some studies around that, the pursuit of happiness, the pursuit of enjoyment, the thing when you start looking for that and focusing on it, and try and be happy, to try and enjoy life, so I use them interchangeably, it actually has a reverse effect. When you go looking for it, you don't find it. It's quite counterintuitive. So if you think about you sort of put yourself under pressure again, and it's like, I mean, again, if you've ever been to one of the work events kind of thing, and or an event that's been created by somebody that you kind of don't really want to go to, but they've got a director of fun, and we're going to go, we're going to have fun, everybody, And you know damn well that if you do go to this thing, the only chance of you having fun is by coincidence, not because anybody has planned it to be fun. The most enjoyable bits are normally unplanned, unexpected, or whatever it might be. But when you get the purpose, when you get the direction that you're going in, you know where you're going, you're focused, you're clear, you get into the zone quicker, you're in the flow more easily. And that then becomes enjoyment, then becomes a consequence of that. It's a byproduct of being cleared, focused, and in the moment as you go. So if you're a sports person, if you're in a game, you're in a really tight game, and you're playing at your best, and you're fully on it, and you're just absorbed in the match is what's going on, you thoroughly enjoy it. You're not even thinking about all this stuff. You're just there. You know what you're trying to achieve. You're doing everything you can. You're working at your best, and enjoyment is a consequence. So again, it's all these dichotomies. The more we look for the thing we want, the less likely we are to find it. So it's trying to create. So that's why we shift towards purpose as being the direction that we can start looking for. Enjoyment then comes as a consequence of that.
I love that, Andrew. Absolutely love it. It's really, really, really profound. Yeah. So really interested.
And again, I'm hoping that resonated with your story as well, in terms of as you're getting clearer towards this is what I'm trying to do, this is where I'm going. You're doing the same work, but you just shifted it in a different direction, and the consequences are that you enjoy it more. You're not actually. We always want to do stuff we like, for sure. That kind of makes sense in itself. But in terms of that extra level, extra buzz, that comes as a consequence of you now know the direction where you go.
Absolutely.
Clearer, anyway.
Yeah, no, I agree, because I mean, I've been thinking about that. I've been thinking and really kind of questioning as well. Why am I telling stories? Why photography? Why films? I mean, everybody kind of agrees that images, stills or moving images are very powerful. So, an image speaks more than 1,000 words. We heard of that so many times. So so that's kind of clear. But so I try to move away from what was my set of skills, my profession. But the thing is, I realized that I was really enjoying it. I always said to myself that I always been in a very privileged condition of calling my job a hobby. So, and you enjoy a hobby because it's a hobby. There's no pressure of making money, etc. So I just realized that I stopped saying that for X amount of years. So I wanted to change that. And so I realized that actually I didn't want to change my job. I just wanted to change the businesses and the brands I was working with. So it's really interesting.
Yeah.
And, as a bio...
Yeah. There's a couple of things in there I just want to pick out as well, because they're quite. So first of all,
a coaching session.
The things, what you actually do, your photography, it's a tool at the end of the day. It's a mechanism that you can use. There's more to it than that. There's more to you than just a photographer. That's just one of the tools that you use in order to create stuff. So that's just a tool of the trade. And trying to remember what the second point is. I'm hoping it'll come back to me. But kind of referring back to what we talked about before, which is another element about the difference between business and purpose, business and life purpose. The business itself is just a vehicle. It's just a vehicle with, and you've got certain tools, and it's taking you so far as to where you want to go. If that's taking you the direction of your life purpose, brilliant. If at some point that business needs to stop and you need to jump into another vehicle to take you to the next level, that's absolutely fine. We can hop between businesses. These are just things, whatever, to ultimately help us get along the way. Second point, which has now come back to me, glad I talked. There's a little trap there which you alluded to, which is really important to point out, was that when we're doing the job that we actually enjoy and everything's kind of okay, and then you say you called it about a hobby business, we feel bad about saying, oh, I want more. We are. And the more we start moving into purpose with things that we enjoy and it becomes easier, we start getting guilty because we're actually, oh God, well, I'm actually enjoying myself and I find it quite easy. Oh no, I shouldn't do this. I should be working really hard and slaving away, and it should be sweat. And because we've been trained this into our lives ever since, you've got to work hard to get a result. So it can be very difficult for people to put their hand up and say, I'm doing okay, but I want more in a genuine, authentic, I want more money, but as in more satisfaction. And when we are doing well, we can be sort of a little reticent to actually say, hey, yeah, life's great, because we're actually finding it easy and suddenly we're not used to that. So there's some traps along the way we just got to be mindful of. So good points to bring out there. Thank you.
I'm going to take some notes. Thank you, Andrew.
It's all right. I think you're recording it at the same time, aren't you? So
yeah. By the way, I'm totally rubbish at this, so I completely forgot that I should ask our audience to ask any question they want. So, I mean, usually one of those things, you know, that you need to ask at the beginning, if people are watching the replay or if people are connecting live, you know, please ask any questions in the comments. And you know, feel free to connect with Andrew or myself on LinkedIn as well, and just we can just go a bit deeper on that. So forgive me for that, but you know, I'm still a bit of a newbie, you know, when it comes to lives, you know. So, but I wanted to ask you something else, Andrew. So how do you find your purpose? If you have that call, you want something, you want to change something in your life, in your business, how do you find your purpose? What is your purpose? How do you find that?
There are, I think, two routes. One route is not one you can plan or and not one I would recommend. It's have something very horrible happen to you, and through that process you discover what your purpose is. Remember, I used to work, I alluded to at the beginning, I used to work with companies who'd gone bust, business owners that lost everything, trying to rebuild from having got sort of worst thing that business can face them. And in the first book I wrote, what came through that was them through that they discovered their sense of purpose because of the horrible thing that happened. When you see an inspirational speaker on stage, 9 times out of 10 they will tell you about how horrible their life was and how they found their purpose through it. The person that suffered horrible abuse and now wants to eliminate abuse in the world, the person that was a drug addict and now wants to help people get rid of their drug addiction. You mentioned about divorce as being a trigger point to actually make you think differently. So when we tend to just wander through life, the only time we actually sort of start taking notice of what we really want is when something comes along and slaps us in the face. And that's why COVID was such an important thing, because globally we got a slap in the face. Whatever we thought about it or whatever it was, nevertheless we got slapped in the face, and which made us think. And that wasn't for some people wasn't severe enough to keep hold of that thought. Whereas but for me, it's like, well, how do we find that if we don't, you know, how do we avoid the trauma? In other words, again, a common thing. If people have heard me before, they'll have heard this before. But as I say, I used to work with companies that have gone bust. There's a big business mantra that you'll hear often all over the place is you need to fail in order to succeed. And they will tell you all the times about all these business gurus have had so many companies that have gone bust and then they've gone through and all the rest of it. And I'm fine with that because failure is a big important part of success. But if you are building a business plan of a successful business, that would imply that you have to say, right, I'm going to build this business and in year 3 I'll go bust, then I'll learn everything from that and then I'll be successful, which I don't like as a general concept, but that is the implication of all these people saying you need to fail in order to succeed. So what do we do? First of all, take the pressure off. It's about being open and curious and exploring. It starts with looking inside and understanding our own journeys. As I said before, it's part of our own story. Our purpose will sort of filter through. We'll be naturally drawn to what we want to be doing. So it's about looking back at and trying to pick up clues from the life that we've already led. Where were we drawn? What did we do? What happened? And looking inside in terms of who we really are and what really matters and what really counts and what upsets us and what makes us happy and where did that come from, and breaking things down and getting clear about that internal stuff. So there's not an easy answer, but you know, if it was a case of here you go, here's a 5-step plan to find it, then great. I mean, I do work with people on it and trying to uncover it, but I right up front to say there's no guarantees. It's not necessarily an easy process. You keep working on it, but I'll give them the tools to start where to look. But ultimately, if you were to put it in a nutshell, in the majority of cases, and this refers back to those people on stage, you'll see it clearly in there, but put it in a nutshell, is our purpose in life is to help people like us. So when we understand who we are and what our story has been, we can spot people out there who have a similar story, maybe a little further behind in our journey, but we can help them and give them a hand up. Then we're more connected to it because it's something we recognize. So we need to have gone through a journey in order to experience these things. Then we look out there and say, who else can we help that was like me? And then give them a helping hand up. And then we get so in a really simple form, that's probably your best you're going to go with, but
very
more complicated than that.
Very, very enlightening. Thank you so much, Andrew. Also, just to start wrapping up as well, because there's been half an hour. I mean, I could listen to you for hours, Andrew, I must say. But just to kind of wrap up, one thing that it just sprang to mind when you were talking about your personal story as well. So I thought that was really interesting because it's about also like embracing who you are and what is your story, what led you to the person you are and to the business that you want to build or restructure. So I think that's the power of storytelling. I mean, for me, it was some personal narratives that changed over the years, and it's so my journey was really about embracing those narratives and how to translate those narratives into a business, basically. And also reminding me of I think they're still around, but there is a company set up by a few young Mexican guys who, if you don't know them, that you should check them out. They organize a series of events globally. They're called Fucked Up Nights, and they are a lot of fun. Have you heard of them?
You never heard? I've got the link. It's on my to-do list to get on there and get along at some point.
Yeah,
I have to prioritize sometimes, but I've still got it, so I will definitely look.
It's great because what they do, they invite people on stage, people who failed, who fucked up on their life at a personal level and a business level, and it's incredible the story that these people share. I mean, they're so powerful. And of course, I just went to one live event, that was before the pandemic. The one person that really really moved me was the producer of it was a film producer who had to remortgage his house to finance his new independent film, and failed, lost the house, and but he had this script sitting on his deck for years, and it was a Billy Elliot script. So eventually, he produced Billy Elliot on the back of the other failure that he did, because he didn't make any money, the other film, and he became a very successful film producer. I have no idea exactly what he did after Billy Elliot, but it's really interesting how really kind of how much you can learn from your failure. And so anyway, it's
Absolutely.
Just a story.
And again, two points I'll pick from that. So one, and there'll be some people watching this that would have been screaming this already, and I totally get it. But there's no such thing as failure. I mentioned earlier on, you don't want to, but no, there is no such thing as failure. It's just what is dictated by other people as failure, and then it's only when we take on other people's thoughts and beliefs that we then internalize that failure. But there actually isn't any failure. It's you're learning from that process. And again, we hear so many times those stories of this went horribly wrong, but that allowed something else to happen. And this is a little tip for people if you're going through a difficult time, you're having challenges or whatever it is. And this is a question I ask a lot of people who've had something go horribly wrong. If in a couple of years' time, 3 years' time, you will look back, what would have to happen for you to look back and say, do you know what? That horrible, horrible thing that happened, best thing that ever happened to me. Because it does happen so often. So what would you have to do in order to look back and say, when it's going on now, to look back at what's going on now and say, best thing that ever happened to me? And it just changes that mind into, okay, let's take some positive actions, and can be difficult. I accept that depending where you are. But there's always potential for growth and success, no matter where you are.
Fantastic.
And your definition of success, not his definition.
Andrew, it's been lovely chatting with you, and so lots of really interesting, thought-provoking ideas. So I will definitely watch myself the replay and just take some notes, and I'm sure a lot of people will do the same. So, Andrew, just to wrap up, how people can get in touch with you? How can you help people? Who should get in touch with you?
Yeah. So if anything we've talked about here today has resonated, probably the best thing to do is, well, what I'll do is recommend is to watch my TED Talk. That's probably the best thing to do. Best way to do that is go on my website, businessenjoyment.com. There'll be a pop-up that you can just click a link. It will offer you to give you an opportunity to download a copy of my connected book, which is called More Than Just Money. If you just want to watch the TED Talk, that's fine. You can come back, but I do recommend getting the book as well. And yeah, that will put you on my email list. But it'll let you know about things that are coming up, and a lot through LinkedIn is probably where I'm most active. I'm on other platforms as well. But later in the year, in September, I will be doing another Your Purpose Challenge, which is going to be a free event. We're going to run it for 5 nights. We haven't got a fixed date yet, but end of September, early October. But get you thinking about these things, get you asking those questions to start exploring your internal stuff. I'll run through my definition of what purpose is and the different ingredients that come in with it, why you're shaped the way you are, and start learning how to break some of these down and start getting connected to that purpose. So yeah, check me out, have a look, get on the list, just follow me, whatever's suitable for you, and look out for that in late in the autumn.
Very good, Andrew. Thank you. So, and if people, because I've no idea who's going to watch this live and where, so people might not even know who I am. But you can connect. I would say for now, probably the best way to connect with me is through LinkedIn, because I'm quite active on this platform. And if any of the things that I discussed today is relevant to you, if you want to chat about how to make a bigger impact using visual stories, which is what I do. So making impactful visual stories, so film and photography in particular, just let me know. I work with agencies in partnership with other agencies, and I work with clients. So I'll be happy to have a chat with you about any of this. So thank you again, and see you on the next live. Thank you, Andrew. Bye.
Thank you very much for having me on. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you.